Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology. Only from TenCate Protective Fabrics.
All right. Hello, everybody. It's Eric Dreiman. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hooks and Hoses podcast. Well, happy to welcome my guest, Devin Craig, tonight to talk about a lot of training stuff. Probably talk about some smoke diver stuff along the way, and we'll see where else the conversation leads us. So before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that the hot classes at FDIC 2024 are filling up fast. If they aren't full yet, they will be very soon. So if you have any interest in going, please get yourself registered. Otherwise, you're going to be out of luck because the classes are filling up at a record rate. And we're looking forward to having pretty much everything sold out by the time April gets here in Indianapolis. So my guest tonight is Captain Devin Craig. He's been a firefighter for over 20 years. He's currently in South Montgomery, Texas, South Montgomery, Texas Fire Department, which is on the north side of Houston. And he's also part owner or the face of the Train or Die Facebook page and Train or Die training company. So Devin, welcome.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So as we get going here, Devin and I are going to talk a lot about training. It's passionate for him. It's passionate for me. I've had the opportunity. Devin and I have never met face to face, but I've had the opportunity to follow him over the years and read articles that he's written and seen other shows that he's been on. And how do you? The question right out of the gate is, I've always been impressed. You just always seem to be on. You've just got, and I know, I know we all have our downtimes, but every time I see you, you're just like 100% into it. How do you maintain that kind of motivation and keep that level of involvement?
I guess I wasn't always that way by any means. I don't like to sit still. You'll see me in the chair moving back and forth. There's a reason I sit in a chair that moves.
Yeah.
And a lot of it for me in the fire service is the fact that my family lives in this community. So even when I changed jobs, we moved to where I work now. And the idea that I'm going to be gone and someone is going to have to take care of my family if something happens constantly reminds me, and that while most of us aren't going to make that fire, at some point we're going to make a fire where we have to make a difference, and there's no one else coming to do that. So the idea that every little bit counts makes a big difference to me. Somebody commented one time that Olympians train for 4 years to run for less than 30 seconds, and we can't train for 5 minutes. And the idea that when I leave my house, and I've been married for 10 years now, and the idea that when I leave my house to go to work, I'm not helping anything in my house. So what I do at work has to mean something. And if it's, we call them recliner races to see who could take the longest nap. That's not going to pay off when I get home to a house with 2 kids and a wife that works and the madness that is. So I think that's a lot of it for me. I really believe in the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. And the angel for me is always telling me quit be lazy. And that keeps me moving most of the time. My father retired as a training chief in the fire department, in a different fire department, and he was the same way. So he retired last year and he still has 5 jobs. So there's some DNA in it too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, that was you kind of led into my next question, which was, how did you get your start? I know you started pretty young, probably a lot younger than a lot of us did. So, I mean, did you come out of were you born and somebody handed you a Halligan bar or and a set of pull up boots, or
I guess
how did that all transpire?
It's almost that way. My father was a motorcycle mechanic, and he raced dirt bikes, and he was living a good life. And he met my mom, and they fell in love. And then I showed up, and then my dad took a Monday through Friday job at a car dealership, and then my mom saw that my dad needed to do something more, and she got him to be a volunteer fireman. And he was a volunteer fireman for a little bit, and rose to the ranks in that, and then he became a paid fireman. And I lucked out. My mom was doing night school, and I was home with dad, and dad caught a fire. So the old school volunteers, we got in his pickup truck and drove to the fire. And I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my dad told me to don't open the door of that pickup, and I'll be back in a minute. And I could see the fire down the street, and my dad got out, put his gear on, walked to the fire, and I went out the window. I did what I was told. I didn't open the door. So out the window I went, and then I went to the first in bumper, and it kind of went from there. And then I lucked out and went straight to fire school out of high school, and got my first job. So yeah, it's funny. Somebody asked me if I could do anything else, what would it be? And I spent 2 days and had nothing still. So I don't know. I guess it's just endless. Yeah.
No, I understand. This is the only job I've ever had. So it's hard to imagine doing something else. So I completely get it. So what, you're a captain now, and I know you've got an opinion on the role of the company officer. As you've promoted, what originally motivated you to take that first step to go from firefighter and to proceed up the ranks and decide that, hey, I think I got more to offer. I think I can be a company officer. I think I can do this. How long did it take you?
I lucked out. I promoted off my first test. And I remember looking around the room going, I think I can do very, very well. And I think the guys in here aren't bad, but I think I can do better. And I studied my butt off, very hard to take it. And I lucked out and got that first one. And then I am very honest about this. I wasn't very good at it at all. I was raised in the old school fire service, where you were told what to do, you did it, and you didn't ask any questions. And I thought that's how everyone was. And then as I was able to go around more, it changed how I was, especially the last 6 years. I can tell you I changed a lot in learning how people react to stuff. And then I have quickly found that the company officer is the best job in the world. My current position, I hope to retire at, and I'm a training captain now. So it's even better than being on a pumper in some aspects. There's days I do miss that ladder truck, but yeah. And you see how the company officer pretty much, if a crew's got a bad company officer, they act that way. If he's lazy, they're typically lazy, and so on and so forth. And I took pride in that my crew that I had was the best crew we ever had, and they always got the hardest jobs, and they were good at it. And I liked that way of things. And I lucked out in an organization that allowed me to do that way. And I had a very good battalion chief that allowed me to operate that way. And he was flat out. He said, you don't have a leash, but every now and then I'm going to ask you to come back. And he knew if I could run free, but if he asked me to come back, I had to come back, and we operated that way. So yeah, I guess that's it.
So, yeah, that's a good answer. So you said you promoted off your first list. What kind of challenges did you encounter, or what kind of things going into it? You said you were kind of old school in the way that things, you were used to things working, but it sounds to me like you probably didn't. You got a kind of a wake up call after you got promoted, which I can completely relate to when I got promoted. But what were some of the things that you faced? Some lessons learned. If you could go back and talk to yourself as that newly promoted officer. Or you could help the next guy coming up that's getting ready to get promoted. What are some of the lessons you learned, or things that you would want to pass along to somebody else?
It's funny because when you're young, you assume that people are just old. You don't realize what age does to you. And an 18-year-old kid looks at a 36-year-old and, they're double my age. They're really old. And as you get older, you realize that 36 isn't that old. But you also realize that some things take time, and maturity takes time. And at 23, I was a captain, and the first lesson is don't be 23 and be a captain. It's you're too young. You're too dumb. You don't know it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I assumed that everybody was into the job as I was. Assumed that they were as motivated as I was, and if they weren't, they were bad. And I quickly learned that just because someone doesn't operate the same level I do doesn't make them doesn't make them a bad employee or a bad person by any means. It's something that we can work with. And you learn over time that while you want the company officer to know everything, you want them to be the best guy you have, if they assume they are and they act that way, well, then they end up being a bad one. So the humility to when people come and give you ideas or give you criticism, or if someone asks you a question, it's okay to say, I don't know. And I've seen this over my career where I've watched guys teach things, and then I've asked them, where did you learn that? And the guys that are good will tell me, I made it up. And the other guys will, they'll meander around and answer that is the truth that they don't know. Versus trying to find what each individual person you have, what they're good at, and pulling those things out of them. And everybody, whether they're the biggest couch potato, they're probably good at something, and finding out what that is and making that work. And while you can say you don't know, you have to find the answer anyway. But how to teach people with that, and how to say, I don't know, why don't you go on a little route with me, and we'll figure this out together, and we'll learn better. So most of it for me, honestly, was humility in it, and then really knowing what that meant. And then there's things still to this day that I like to do first because I'm really bad at it. And I found as a company officer that if we did things that I knew I needed help with, and if I was bad at it, if I went first and they saw me make all the mistakes you could make, and then go, look, don't worry about screwing up. We're going to jaw jack back and forth, but we're not going to think you're an idiot because you mess up. I just did everything wrong. And now I'm going to find a fireman who's got maybe a year of experience, but he just went to a class for this, and he's going to teach me. That made it a whole lot better. And then we started setting some rules on the training ground with involving gear and involving how we talk to each other. And it made it a lot better. And a lot of the look at it through the other person's eyes. And to the point that we were very concerned with, what did our rookie go and tell his family when he got home? And if he, tells them that, oh, my first day, I got soaked with water 4 times, or nobody spoke to me, or I had to eat. I've heard horror stories of eating food at different tables and these things. And I understand some of the putting them pay in for the job and putting the time in, but at the same time, we have to treat them like adults. And on that note, I learned from my own wife that, hey, when firemen are working with that officer, when we have a guy, we're responsible for them. So if I'm the company officer, these 3 guys in front of me, I am their caretaker. And how you put it, but if something happens to them, their wife's going to look at me and want to know why they didn't know that, or why I let them down, and I have to be that. And so if I can't assume that, or if I can't defer that responsibility, and again, I don't know what I would have done had one of my guys gotten hurt, to have to call his wife and say, hey, Mike's hurt because we decided we were going to have a Sunday and sleep all day instead of working on VES or something that we knew we were bad at. So a lot of that ownership of it, and owning, of course, I'm a big follower of extreme ownership and that stuff, but owning everything in that if something happens, if guy doesn't know something, well, we didn't teach him. And if he doesn't understand it, we didn't try hard enough. And if the guy is a good person, then yeah, and start to own those things. So ownership, humility, most of everything you learn at Smoke Diver, that kind of stuff, really for me. So yeah.
Yeah. No, say that again. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Don't be 23 years old. Be, I don't know, 30 with kids. You'll learn better.
I understand. Yeah. Well, I was a lot older than that, and I still felt like I got promoted too soon, once I look back on it. But you brought out a couple things there that I think are important to kind of reflect on or drive home. And that was something that somebody told me at some point in my career, was you might outrank the guys you work with, but you probably don't outknow them, meaning that they probably know as much or more than you do, particularly if you're coming into a new station and your crew's been there a while. right? They know things about that district. They know things about the apparatus that you don't know. So I think that kind of speaks to the humility, and I try and pass that along to people that I try and mentor. Might be too strong a word, but things that I try and educate new officers on is that it's okay not to know everything, because you know, if you come in thinking that you know everything, then you're going to get made to look like a fool pretty quick. Um, and then the other thing that you said that again, I think is something that's worth noting is a lot of people think, well, if I get promoted, then I'm going to have 3 guys working for me, or I'm going to have 2 guys working for me. And it's kind of the opposite. You work for them now. And like you said, you're responsible not only for those 2 or 3 guys that are on your apparatus with you, but their families, their wives, their girlfriends, husbands, whoever it is, their kids, their parents. Because, nobody wants to make that phone call. Nobody wants to have to look somebody's family in the eye and say, yeah, you know, I wasn't doing my job, or I let something happen to somebody. So, that's, we often think about paycheck or promotions being a paycheck and an extra bugle or speaking trumpet or whatever you want to call it. And all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot more weight with it than people obviously um, realize in most cases. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's good stuff, and I'm glad to hear other people saying some of the same things that I'm thinking. Makes me realize I might not be completely off base, at least. So yeah. So let's talk about I said we were going to talk about your 12 steps to building a better crew in the pre-show, and you wrote this article back in 2022 in Firefighter Nation. It's a pretty interesting article, I thought, but and I appreciate you writing it. I got a lot out of it. That you talk about step one as evaluate why you are the way you are. So talk about that a little bit. As far as self-reflection, and it's not easy I think probably for people in general, and specifically for firefighters, because we're so type A and we like to think that we're pretty squared away. But with time comes reflection, and with reflection comes realization that we probably weren't as good as we thought we were. So, um, you know, just talk to us a little bit about, what you mean by that. Evaluate why you are the way you are, and how you came up with that idea.
It's at some point you have to begin, and to begin you have to know where to start, and to know where to start is first with you. So for me, it was literally looking in the mirror and going, hey, am I in the best shape I could be? And what do I know, and how do I know that? And then going from that. So if you hang around with bad people, you're going to be a bad person. So if you hang around with good people, you will be a good one. So the things the people that you hang out with, the things that you read, the things that you listen to, make a big impact on your life, whether you realize it or not. And if you want to be better, you have to be around those things. So to start and literally find out why you wake up, why you get to work 10 minutes early versus an hour, why you have a crew that nobody seems to stay there very long, or why have you been passed up for promotion, or why do you not want to go any further, and figure out what your view is going to be, and your vision of your life, and your vision of your career. And in the fire service, we have a hard time with this, because for the majority of us, it's never going to happen where we're tested. And that's the way it is. Most of us aren't going to make that terrible fire. Most of us are not going to be in that one position, but there's also the chance that we all could be. And it's just how the dice work. So I think of it the other day that there's 1.1 million firemen in the United States. So if we were to look out across all those people tonight, somebody, Jesus is going to reach down and grab a guy and say, you're the fireman that makes a difference. And that guy has whatever he has. And if he isn't prepared for that, then that's it. And there's a good chance, whether it be a house on fire or a CPR or a car wreck, that someone's life could be affected because of that. And the sad part is, if he does bad, unless he does something really crazy, there's probably no consequences for that outside that person getting injured and hurt or dying. But for him, there's not. So you have to live with that. So the inherent responsibility that I have to live with who I am and the consequences of that. And if I'm not good, then something could happen. And especially when you get to responsibility roles with being an officer and being a parent and being a husband, there's things that I have to come home and justify. So I really believe if you understand where you are and where you want to go, that's going to make a difference. There's a lot of things that we try to get people to go to, and the first thing we tell them is sign up. If you want to get better at ropes, sign up for rope class, and then work to get good as you get ready for that class, and then we'll go. But if you say, hey, I think I want to know more about, I don't know, fire service, then you're not going to pick anything. You're not going to do anything. And you're never going to go anywhere with that because there is no goal in that. So deciding that I had a really good guy that could deadlift 500 pounds. He didn't deadlift 500 pounds by walking in the gym and picking up a barbell the first time. The guy sat down, talked to a coach, made a plan, and over a time period, he got better at it, and he got to where he could do that. And he wrote it down as he got that. So he took that elephant of deadlifting 500 pounds and broke it down to little pieces, which is what the 12 steps mostly is, and ate that elephant. So again, you got to start with the first bite. So that's mostly where that comes from. And a lot of guys will tell you that I want to be really good, or I want to be a good fireman. Okay, well, there's steps to do that, but you have to get up and do the steps. So that's the funny thing too. The hardest thing about anything you do is the very first step. So if you want to work out in the morning, the hardest thing is getting out of bed. Nobody ever went in the gym and said, "Oh, I don't want to work out today." No, you were there. You did it. So that's
Right.
what most of it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you for that. And it's important you got to know who you are and where you're at before you can set some goals. And I like the way you said, it's the small bites, and you talk about that in your article with the small bites. And it's I think a lot of times people get discouraged. They say they don't come up with a specific or a finite enough goal. Like you said, they want to be a good fireman. Well, that means different things to different people. But if you want to be a good ladderman or you want to be a good nozzleman, set some of those goals for yourself, make them a little bit more specific, and then once you get good at that, move on to something else. But you got to set those. It's got to be those little micro goals or mini goals that ultimately add up to the big goal. I think you would agree, don't you?
Absolutely. And to that note, we have an inspections division in my fire department, and we have an inspector he's a little bit older. He's a little bit out of shape. And he said, man, I did something yesterday and I got winded. So I'm thinking about, I need to do something. And back in the way far back of my brain, I'm like, do CrossFit, but I'm like, wait a minute. If I tell him to do that, he probably won't do it,
Yeah.
and it's such a high peak to get in that kind of shape, he won't do it. But if I decided something else, I said, hey man, we have a drill tower that's between the parking lot and your office. Tomorrow, walk the tower. And he did very good. He said, how many times? I said, well, let's do one. Let's do one. And do one for a week and see where that gets you. And he kind of, well, that sounds easy. I go, it does. But you got to do the first one. And I think people think too far into it and think that they're going to be Usain Bolt, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and God knows who else overnight. And no. And anybody that tells you, any kind of health professional will tell you, the first thing you do is take a picture. Take a picture of what you look like, and then now you know where you're starting. And then you'll see it later. But if you don't see that, you won't get to that habit of it. And all these things is trying to make things a habit, whether it be training or eating right or whatever. And that's hard. Habits take more than once. So
Yeah. Well, how do you translate this thought process and this motivation and the idea of personal reflection? How do you translate that to your crew, particularly to, as a company officer, being a little bit, maybe you're a newer officer, or you may not be a new officer, but you're moving to a new station. What are some of the things that you can do to kind of, that you feel have been successful for you as far as passing along your thought process and your attitude to the folks that you work with?
Most of what we do is doing the same thing and showing that example of it and being a good example. So first come in and saying, hey guys, these are the things I'm good at. I know pretty well. and I think I could hold a pretty good standard of this. This is some things that I am not good at, but I heard at Station 2 that y'all are good at this. So can you help me build my skills with that, and show that little bit of buy-in and that little bit of want to get better? And that's a full thing. You can't just say that and then not do it. You have to actually do it and engage and be a good student. And I really believe in how you present yourself. So you can't come in talking a bunch of nonsense and being all big and bad when you're out of shape yourself, or when you can't get your gear on, or you can't mask up fast enough. They're going to know that immediately, and any credibility you have is going to be gone. When I moved to training, a big change for me was before you have your own guys. So your guys, they might know that you might come in early, but you work out at a certain time of day. They know that. So they know you're working out, or they know that you know what you know. But when you're in the training division, you don't have your own guys. You have the entire fire department. So they don't know any of that. So you don't have any room to get away with these things. So I was very big, and still very big in this, that I make sure I look good every day. My stuff's together. I still bust my butt when they don't see me, to make sure that I can hold that, because at some point in this position, I'm going to give them a training drill. And if I have no idea how to do it, and I'm the one that put it out there and didn't ask for help, they're going to know that, and they're going to call me out on it, and it's not going to be that good. And the same thing is if I put out something there that's physically I couldn't do any day of the week, they're going to know that. So, well, again, I don't need to be and will never be the best guy there. I need to know who to look for. So a good example of that is we're doing ropes training next month. I've taken some rope classes. I'm pretty good at tying knots, but we have people better in the fire department for that. So we put it out to them. I said, this is the training we're doing next month. I need y'all to put it together, and we'll facilitate that. But y'all are the ones that tell me what you want to do. And I think that creates buy-in in that. So a little bit of that, and a bunch of, again, we're going to keep coming back to it, but it's humility in that. And then knowing that a team is better than a person. So if the team is good, then we can do great things. If a person is good, well, then they're just over there being good by themselves. So it's I'm a big baseball fan and sports fan, but everybody's going to tell you the best quarterback in the country can't throw the ball from on the ground. So if he decided that he's just going to be good and let the lineman be terrible, he's going to keep getting hit, and that's going to be the end of it. Versus if you can help those people and they can help you, you can work better together. And a lot of that too, was just brought to us, was knowing how to talk to people and how some people deal with things. I'm a big believer in knowing their background and knowing an idea, and knowing that a 25-year-old guy that was in the Marines and went to Iraq and Afghanistan is going to operate differently than a 21-year-old kid who this is his first job. So you can't talk to them the same. You're still fair to them, but you treat them a little bit differently in how you approach things, and it helps you go too. I also had one little thing that I didn't publicize very much, but one of my guys, my most strong-willed guy I had a stack of sticky notes, regular yellow sticky notes, in his locker. And if at any point in time I acted out, if I went too far, if I pushed the boundary or whatever it was, all he had to do was take that sticky note and put it on my desk. He didn't have to write anything on it. He didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to do it when I was in there. And that little thing, and granted, he had him for over 3 years. I think he finally used it one time as a joke. But that little thing kept me in check, because it told me too that while I'm the highest ranking guy and I was the most senior of all the officers there, if something happened, one of my guys could put me in check. And that was a fireman who had much less years of experience from me, but he was a very good dude. So that was always in the back of my head, that I've seen plenty of officers act out and be too much and then just go in their office. And nobody wants to walk in there and approach the guy. But that little thing gave him a way to not have to even deal with me, to make me look in the mirror. And I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. Having that relationship with the people, and certainly being in the training division is a different animal than being in the companies, as you mentioned. But having that relationship when you're in the companies with your folks, and being able to say, you can depend on me to be if I say we're going to do something, then it's not going to be the three of you doing it and me standing back watching you. It's going to be all four of us, and being able to be friends. You always hear I've heard it many times in my career that you can't be a boss and be somebody's friend, which I disagree with. And you have to be able to be both, right? You have to understand that you can collaborate, you can be friendly with one another. But if push comes to shove, you're still the boss. But at the same time, if you've got that relationship with the folks that you work with, then it allows them to be able to, as you said, put you in check or say, hey man, you kind of stepped over the line there a little bit. Let's look at this, or let's revisit this, or hopefully this won't happen again. Yeah. So as you move forward, talking about the 12 steps, you talk about always moving forward, always moving, or always forward, always moving is the last step. I think you kind of hit on some of that already, but is there anything else? We kind of went through them fast, and I know that we didn't go through all 12 of them specifically, but in one fashion or another, we kind of hit them all as you were talking about different topics. So is there anything else as far as the always forward, always moving, as far as keeping yourself motivated and keeping your crew motivated?
That was something I learned the hard way, and I don't even know where the words came from. They ended up above my front door to my house, to walk out of my house, and I literally remember putting them up there, but I don't know what emblazoned me to do that. But there have been hard things happen, and we haven't had anything terrible, but there's going to be hard times at work. There's going to be things that suck. There's going to be rough calls or rough family things that happen. And in the end, you just have to keep moving a little bit and keep going a little bit. And when I went through some hard stuff, a very difficult class, I set out my stuff in front of me, and I still do that. I set my clothes up for the next day. I set my bag up for the next day. And these things, when I have downtime, I'm able to get ready for the next thing, so that when my alarm doesn't go off, or when we catch a run or whatever, my stuff's already ready to go. I don't have to cognitively think about anything. So those little bitty things you can do for yourself to keep moving forward, and no matter what happens, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and it's going to be a new day, and we're going to get through this. And I learned too with that just because you got a flat tire doesn't mean you're having a bad day. Just because you came in on shift and whatever, you forgot your belt for work or some goofy thing, doesn't mean you're going to have a bad day. And to not let these little bitty tiny things affect everything you do. And a lot of that too turns into that fire station, complaining, that turns into just flat out, bad stuff getting said, when really, hey guys, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. We have the best job in the world by all means. We get to hang out with other people that we enjoy. We get to eat good food. We get to work out. We get to be someone's savior and stuff, and take care of people. And if you start to take care of people and start doing those little things, it makes a big difference. And struggle makes you stronger. So when things suck, just work through it, and that's a test you're going to have to deal with. I recently was just in Kentucky. I did mess up. I looked at the weather for Kentucky and then laughed because I thought it wasn't true. And then I got to Kentucky and there was snow on the ground. And for a guy from Southeast Texas who when it snows here, we just shut the state down. I was not prepared. And then my rental car got a flat tire, and this is one of those things of like, yeah, this is rough, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And when you look down and you're still, you still have your health and you still have a family waiting for you at home, then okay, whatever, man. It is what it is, and let's laugh about it. It's going to make a good story later. So to not let some goofy thing or some massive challenge in front of you freak you out and go, hey, look, and that's a lot of the teaching that we do is if you want to be the best crew there is and be able to run on the fire ground and throw ladders by yourself and all that, you're not going to learn that overnight. So breaking it down to tiny itty bitty pieces, going a little bit forward every day, and always moving forward with it makes a big difference. And that little saying and some very, very good people got me through Georgia Smoke Diver. And I credit them by all means. But that boxing things up of going, hey, look, we're going to do this and we're going to do this till the next thing, and you're fine. So that's most of it. where it's come from, and it's worked out. It helped me. So
Yeah. Well, that's true. We all get wrapped up in our own heads sometimes and think the sky's falling all around us. And when in the grand scheme of things, like you said, it's not that big a deal. And 6 months from now, it'll be a blip on the screen. It won't even be it won't even be worth breaking up again, right? So it's good advice. You mentioned Georgia smoke divers, so let's talk about that a little bit. And in my previous role that I used to have, I was the chief of training in Indianapolis, so I had some involvement with the Indiana smoke divers. I haven't been through the program myself, but uh, I did a lot of logistical stuff and support stuff for them. And I remember um, when that program first started here in Indiana, and of course I'd heard about it, the Georgia smoke divers and all this, thing. And I'd be lying if I said that when I first got introduced to it, I thought it was like some voodoo magic. Let's see how tough we can be on somebody, and all this kind of stuff. And then they would invite me out because of my involvement in my position within the fire department. And the instructors, the lead instructor Matt Stewart, would say, "Hey, Chief, why don't you come out and hang out with us for the morning or on day 2 or whatever, and we'll show you around." And kind of, and I got to admit that I was incredibly naive with what that program is, and I know you guys got your own secrets, and you don't let out all the different things that everybody goes through. So I'm not asking you to divulge anything that you're not allowed to, but just talk a little bit about that process. And I was taken away by the amount of preparation, not only for the students but for the instructors as well, and how much thought goes into that with diet, you know the 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 buddy system with the rope, and you got your battle buddy kind of stuff, and all those different things that I've learned to come to respect uh, after my exposure to it. Just talk a little, and I know you've got your own story about getting through it. I've heard it before, but just talk a little bit about that.
you will probably rarely meet a smoke diver and not know it, and that's not any boisterous way or to think anybody's better than anybody else. But for most of it, most of us, it either changed our life or made a deep impact on us. And for me, coming from the training aspect and being able to go back and seeing behind the scenes and seeing how well it's run, it's the best run program in the country. And I'd argue that with anybody. And I worked at a fire academy for a long time and been able to run a lot of conferences and whatnot. And it's still the best ran thing I've ever seen. And then the understanding that you can do high stress, high risk things and not have anybody be injured tells you how good that program is ran. I actually did attend Indiana and failed to prepare mentally, and you might have even seen me. I was there for a couple of days and then decided that I needed to go home. For me, it broke it down, and it showed that what I could and couldn't do, and then what it would look like if you took a group of people and have 95% of them be the best people you've ever met, and what they could accomplish. So it's fun to go back because I've seen grown firemen almost getting fistfights over who gets to pass out papers. That's how type A these guys are. And I say 95% of them are great. The other 5% are good because there's still a spectrum. And I'll tell you, on the spectrum of them, I'm definitely way at the bottom. There's been some amazing people get through it, and then everybody that gets through it is taught very, very sternly that this doesn't make you any better than anybody else. This is all your own challenge, and you're just learning some skills and learning what you can and can't do. The ops chief forever, Brett Hollander, used to tell us that we don't give away anything for free, but you can have all you want. So to show that there's a standard and we're going to meet that, and that is what it is. The bar doesn't move. So knowing that there are classes out there and seeing what you could do made a big, deep impact on me, and the humility in it, and of course the leadership it's taught throughout of it, which most of it is, and I'm actually all of it is servant leadership and taking care of each other, and that's a big part of it's you and your partner. You stay in the same hotel room together. You're with that dude for 24 hours usually, and you have to help them get through it. And you may not know that person beforehand, I went every time, all 4 times by myself, which I wouldn't recommend anybody because I met a new person every time I went, and every time either I left or that person left before, so I never made it all the way through with somebody. But you knew that as you went through it with that person, uh, if they were struggling, that didn't mean that you got to go further. No, it means you help your buddy and you get that guy to get through it. And there's only one evolution in that 5-hose drill that you do by yourself. But the rest of them, it's you and that dude, or you and a couple other guys, and it's a very much a team thing. And little things matter, and little things create a big difference. We see that with NIOSH reports and firefighter line of duty deaths. Very rarely do you see a firefighter line of duty death where he was the greatest guy in the world and it just happened that something happened to him. No, it's usually a confluence of a bunch of tiny things rolling over and over again. So little things like you're going to have your cutters and your webbing on you at all times. That's it. That's the standard. You drop them, we're going to get you, and we're going to straighten this out. And then seeing things like having the same set of guys doing PT or the same set of guys motivating people, and seeing how the senior guys that are on the motivation squad, how they interact with people and how they handle it makes a big difference. And learning from those dudes. And one of the greatest guys there, he told me flat out when I was struggling, he said, what day is it? And I told him it was Wednesday. He said, what time is it? I said, it's late. He said, good. So you know where you are, what you're doing. All right. Are you tired? And I go, yeah, sir, I'm tired. It's late. And he goes, well, that's your body talking. Your brain works so you know where you are, and your brain drives your body. So shut up and get this done. And that was my robot mode. I suddenly was able to focus and do things and operate and not worry about the fact that my back hurt or my knees hurt or I was just tired. It didn't matter. So that was another one of the lessons I was learned. And it's interesting too, because you're going to go through this whole 6-day thing and you're going to somewhat transform, and that you are going to quickly realize what you are, what you can and can't do, and know that your limit is only surpassed by pushing it. So nobody gets better by sitting still. And the point in smoke diver, when you think you're exhausted and done and whatnot, oh, cool. Well, you didn't finish, so go do it again. And you do it again, and their teaching style is how we teach now. So their teaching style is very much, we're going to demonstrate it to the full capacity. So if you're going to do it in full gear, they're doing it in full gear. Then we're going to show you how to do it. We're going to break it down. We're going to practice it. And then we're going to do it full speed in live smoke or fire. Holy cow. That's hard. And the only thing we don't do that way is do window bailouts because of the rope rescue stuff. But you still do it under theatrical smoke. So there were things that if you had told me before I got there that I was going to do, I wouldn't have believed you. There's no way I'm going to bail out a window using a pair of cutters as an anchor. I did it. I did it a lot, and it worked. And had they not trained me up to it, I wouldn't have been able to do it. We do some very risky things very, very well, and they monitor it very, very well. And it really is a very good learning environment. And a lot of people will talk to you about stress inoculation or this stuff. And this class actually does that to that point. And most things that you see today where stress inoculation turned into stress immersion. Hey, we're going to take him, we're going to put him we're going to black him out, we're going to put him in a maze. Okay, he's breathing air. He's brand new. You have immersed this guy in stress and not built him up. So how do you expect him to react? He's probably not going to do well. And versus, hey, let's do a maze in bunker pants and a coat. Let's do it in an air pack. Let's do it where he can see. Let's do it. Well, let's walk him through it, and then we'll slowly get him through that. That's inoculation. That's a slow time to it versus jumping into things. The class beat me up. I had a very, very difficult time by all means. But in the end of it, I was better. And I was better. For me, it was better. I wouldn't recommend it either to go more than once. But because I had to go so many times, I built it up. And I had to take little pieces of it each time I got there. And God bless my wife. The last time I went, she flat out told me, she said, you have to come back with a number. This is the 4th time. Or we can't keep doing this, because she knew it when I would come back and I hadn't finished it, how beat up I was and how mentally I was torn up. And most people they leave on Sunday or Monday, and that's 100% their brain. Their brain is heavy. That little man between your ears will beat you up and weigh you down. And you will see some very in shape people that pass an agility test to get in that they can't do push ups. And their brain is just holding them down. And getting past that little man in your head and knowing that no matter how strong you are, you still got to beat that little dude. And that 6-inch space will get you all the time. I lucked out with some great people there. I lucked out and had to have some good conversations with Chief Rhodes and Robbie Townsend and a dozen other people, Casto and whatnot. And there were moments where my brain wasn't clicking, and they were able to put me square in back in place. And I owe those people everything for that. And no, so it's crazy to me to see such a great group and such a good program. But when you ask them, or when they explain it to somebody who from the street and they say, "Oh, it's like the Navy SEALs," the first thing they tell you is, "No, no, 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 no. We're just firemen. We're just regular firemen who did a hard class." And the humility that everybody has in it is the biggest lesson with it too. So no, obviously I'm very passionate about it. I do think everybody should go to it at least once because you see that. You go once and then you feel it. Especially Indiana is a great program and a very good place, but because Georgia is the home of it and Georgia is where it started. If you were to go to Georgia and look at the asphalt, you can see it. I mean, it's old Yankee Stadium. You know, it's in the ground. You know, there is blood, sweat, and tears right there on that ground, and and if you ask anybody guy that went to Dalton, Georgia, and took that class, he'll tell you that, and he'll also tell you that when he goes back, he goes to his little spot. Everybody has their own little spot, the black square with a red rocker on it, and it said GA smoked out probably 30 years ago, it doesn't anymore, but everybody knows where they were, and that little spot is it to them. So I'm the same way. I rarely get to go back now because I'm so busy and with life. But when I go back, that's one of the first things I want to do when I get there is I want to go to the spot that I had. I want to go to 7A. It's in the front row, getting demolished. And I want to touch that little block. And that little block is home to me. And that was the spot. And God bless them. While it's extremely physical oriented and it's extremely mental toughness, the guys that run it are very good mentally. I had left once I fell out on Wednesday, and then when I left Indiana, it was on Wednesday too. So when I was the last time through on Wednesday morning, the head instructor for PT asked me. I'm standing there Wednesday morning. I'm already tired. You're already 4 days into it, and he asked me at 7:00 in the morning when I'm getting ready for PT. He said, Craig, it's Wednesday. He said, how long is the drive home? I said, it's 12 hours. He said, oh, good. He said, you have kids? I said, I do. He said, good. If you leave now, you'll be home for dinner. And you can have dinner with your kids. And it's Wednesday. So you're going to leave anyway. You've been here twice before. There's no reason why miss dinner? You should just go home. And that little man in my head said, he's making some good points. And then the little angel says, what are you doing? You're fine. You're fine. Relax. And I made it through Wednesday that time. And then God bless him, on Thursday, he came up and he said, did you talk to your wife last night? I said, yes, sir, I did. And he said, did you tell her how terrible you're doing? And I said, no, sir. He said, so you lied to your wife? And I immediately thought, is he talking to my wife? He's making some good points. Maybe I should. No, wait. It's Thursday. I'm almost there. And those little things. And again, that's a little bite. Hey, man, you're fine. You're fine. It's not that bad. Keep going. So it's funny, now we do stuff and we do some Denver drills, we do some other stuff, and it's stuff that we learned from there specifically and the mental stuff and stuff. But I have literally grabbed all the groceries my wife bought and brought them in and been like, this isn't hard. I did Georgia Smart. I'm fine, and so nothing is hard anymore at this point. So I remember we had a couple bad days at work with some storms, hurricanes, or the ice storms or other nonsense, or we made a couple fires. And I remember feeling fine afterward going, this is not hard. I know what hard is. I did plenty of days of that. So I could talk about it for hours, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, like I said, I've come to really, really appreciate it. And I think it's a good program, obviously, as you do. But I've never physically experienced it. So for that, I am envious. But at this point in my career, it's probably not something that I'm going to do.
It's rough.
But
It's
so yeah, it's rough, and I'm almost 53, so I'm not sure that my body would hold up. So, um, given all the information, all the stuff that you just talked about with the smoke diver, and I'm sure you were in teaching classes and doing trainings before you went to smoke diver. But how is the way that you deliver training or put training together changed post smoke diver compared to what it was prior to smoke diver? Have you made any changes in how you deliver your training, or you develop your training when you're traveling around, or even within your own fire department?
I guess one of the biggest things for me was I had traveled inside my state and done a few things before I went, and for me, I was fairly comfortable in that area, and I knew a lot, and nobody's going to tell you they know everything, but I knew a lot, and for me, going the 900 miles away, I immediately didn't know a lot, and was immediately learning things from firemen that they already knew, and I was well into my career at that point. So the understanding that you may be really good in your area, but that doesn't make you good everywhere. And knowing that in Southeast Texas, we don't mask up. We wear a mask coming off the rig. That's a way because of the gear we had years ago. And that was how I was always taught. So I didn't know any better. But then I go somewhere else, and like I did a class in Pennsylvania, and nobody does that. And they get really good at masking up. And man, I'm very comfortable in a mask, but I'm not comfortable doing that. And all of a sudden, this is that. So in teaching, one, we learned that you had to demonstrate things to the smallest level, to where the simplest things was understood. And even something, you remember playing football in the backyard as a kid, you would draw things in the sand for the play. So even drawing things on the ground, and then understanding that what I'm imagining in my head may not be what you imagine. So if I say a 2-story house on fire, you're going to think of something. A picture's going to show up. That might not be the same picture. So maybe that we need to get on the same page with that. And then as you travel and teach, you learn that language matters. So I've been to plenty of places and asked them, what do you call that apparatus? What do you call it when you do this? And then making sure that your terminology matches what they do, so that you don't say something crazy. A wide example would be where we're at. It's a tanker. In California, a tanker is a plane. We don't have those. So little things like that make a big difference. And then two, knowing that just because it's different doesn't make it's wrong. So we've routinely in our classes will make sure that we're available all the time. And we make sure that if there's something that we've seen that we've never seen before, I want to know that information. So if I have a kid there and he's got rope in his pocket, hey, you have this rope. Why do you have that? Explain that to me. I want to learn that too. And what that did was, one, it made us better, and two, it showed them that we don't know everything, and we're humility, and we can do that. And it allows them to ask us questions. So, and we changed that. We used to say, does anybody have any questions? Now we say, is there anything that I went too fast for, or I didn't properly understand? And what we're doing is we're taking ownership of our teaching and saying that I may have missed this. I may have jumped over this. What do we want to do here? And tell me what I missed. Or when we did classes at the fire department, we still do this. When we teach a class, we grab the most senior people when we get done and go, tell me how to make this better. I think this part went a little fast. Is this okay? And then even now we go, hey, we just taught a class on this. Do we need to keep teaching that, or are we past this, or do we need to back up? And we learned that through the fire academy, and through that in the fire academy, we routinely would get to burns, and the students wouldn't be very good. And you would go, oh, and some of the other instructors would say, well, it's a bad group of people. Wait a minute. They don't know how to do things because we didn't teach them. So taking those things that we learned from smoke diver and things that are difficult, the Denver drill in smoke diver is hard when you're exhausted. But if you teach it in bunker pants and slowly, and allow people to slowly get more reps at it, we learned that. And we inherently, because we're breaking things down, like I talked about in the article, because you start with bunker pants on and then you progress to a coat and then an air pack and then whatnot, you're also building reps. So you're not going to get it done perfect the first time, and you're not going to get it done perfect the second time. And maybe we need to crawl, walk, maybe run. Oh, let's go back to crawl. Make sure we get it right, and then do it. And then also allowing students to observe. So, hey, look, I want you to stand back here and watch the instructors do it how you were taught. Is there something they missed? And a lot of that openness and a lot of that communication with it made a big difference in the classes that we teach. We teach classes for the company, and we are very big on no magic tricks. I'm not going to wow you with some crazy webbing thing or some weird stuff. I'm going to show you how to do it when it's the most basic, because when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and the mom's screaming in the yard and you're on a 72, you're not going to be able to do magic. You're going to have to go back to the basic that you have, and you have to be really good at that. So a lot of that stuff, we're big on working as hard as the students. You learn that from Smoke Diver for sure. Smoke Diver, as a student, you do zero cleanup, you do zero preparation as far as the burns and the setup of things, because the instructors handle that because that's their job. And knowing that, hey, look, as instructors, we're going to be there before, we're going to be there afterward, we're going to be in the right uniform, we're going to look good, makes a big difference. And being squared away. So I liked it's in We Were Soldiers, but the Sergeant Major. So in that movie, the Sergeant Major is squared away. He's sharp. He's got his stuff together, and he knows his job. You know that from looking at him. So to be an instructor, you want a sharp instructor, and you want a guy that you, just from appearances, you know this guy's got his stuff together. So we learned in Smoke Diver, and we taught it in the Fire Academy, that we could do gear workouts. And we got pulled out of PT by our head of the program, and he said, "You're having the students do gear workouts." Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can't do that. Why not? Because you don't know how they feel. I do. I'm in there. I'm in the gear. Wait, you were in gear too? I was. Every bit of gear they wore, we wore. We did the same thing they did. And immediately, that lead instructor, God bless him, he told us we were free reign to do anything we wanted to do from then on, because he had ownership in it, and we knew we were good. But those little things matter. So I remember driving by a fire station and seeing 7 guys in polo shirts and shorts and 1 kid spraying water in full gear, breathing air at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday in August in Texas. It's 100 degrees outside. That kid's dying. He's exhausted. He's whooped. And around him is literally people who think they know because they've been there longer. Hey, man, why don't you put your gear on and do it with them? And we teach that too. So when our students wear gear, we wear gear. When they wear bunker pants, we wear bunker pants. And you immediately, one, you teach a better class because you want to get your stuff off too, so you don't mess around with nonsense. And 2, you know what they feel, and you know when they need to take a break. So a lot of that one-on-one stuff, a lot of that togetherness was really what it taught me, and preparation. It's whatever you get there at least an hour, 2 hours before the students, and you line it out, and it's straight away good. Everybody knows their job, and everybody does their job, and we do the same thing with our programs too, and the same thing in the training division now. We line it out and prepare as much as we can before the event happens, so that we know that all the P's and Q's are crossed, and knowing that too, that any event that you do is going to have a big hiccup, and if you aren't prepared for anything, then it's going to be terrible. So writing down contingencies and having plans and having people's jobs. Hey, look, in the event of rain, what do we do? In the event of we do this, they catch a run in the middle of it, what's the plan? And having those things and taking constant notes and writing stuff down and being able to reference things later makes a big difference. I know it's a lot of rant for a lot of stuff, but it taught me so much, and we use it so much now. It made a big difference. And 9 years at a fire academy running, I don't know, 300 students a year, we learned a lot of things. So.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to unpack there, but I think it's, I was happy to hear you say a lot of the things you said. It's important for people that, if you want to be an instructor, you aspire to be an instructor, or you are an instructor, showing up prepared, being dressed for the part, that goes a long way. And I think some people take that for granted. They say, well, I've got my instructor certification, or, um, I'm usually the guy that comes up with the drills for my station or whatever, but they don't really understand the level of responsibility and the weight that goes along with that. And you hit it home. You've got to look. You're the training division, so everybody else, right or wrong, if you're the training division, then the people in your organization expect you to know the most out of everybody, even if you probably don't. But that's the expectation. And if you don't convey that appearance and that attitude that you want to be the best, you are the best, you're trying to aspire to lead from the front, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and people are going to figure out pretty quick that you may not be all that you think you are. Yeah. So how did you come up with the train or die? Why not train or give puppy hugs, or uh, you know something like that? Where did all that come from? And what motivated you to to start carrying your message out outside your organization?
That happened. The symbol itself happened on accident, and it's so goofy. I probably shouldn't admit it, but I have to tell the story. And I mistakenly told it very early when we started, and well, now it's recorded, so we have to tell it anyway. So I went to Mark von Oppen's class, and he had the big four. And me and another guy, Matt Wallace, who owns the company with me, we liked the class, and we were good. We were fired up. And I came back to work fired up. And I took his excellence as my responsibility sign, and I said, I'm going to make this, and we're going to sign it. So I put it on my TV at the station I worked at. We had a TV on the wall that we used as a computer screen. So I put that up on the screen, and one of my very good firemen came in the office at the same time, which was another big thing too for me. That having people be able to walk in without knocking on the door, for Christ's sake, made a big difference to me. But he comes in, he looks at it, and it says, "Excellence is my responsibility." He said, "What's that?" And I said, I think we're going to print it out and then everybody sign it. And we're going to be really, really good. And he said, and he's much younger than me, he said, "That looks goofy." And immediately I did two things. One, I got irritated. And two, I said, "You shouldn't be irritated. He's telling you something." So I said, "What do you think would be different if we did something else?" And he said, maybe a little tougher, Cap." I said, "All right." So I Googled around and I found I found the join or die symbol that was made during the Revolutionary War, and it looks very, very similar. And I changed the word to train. And I said, "What do you think about that?" And he said, "I like it, but I don't want it." He said, "If we all sign it, it's kind of goofy." So we took that symbol, and at that point in time, that shift and that group wasn't very big. But if you look at it, we cut the snake up in different pieces and made more pieces, and then we put everybody's initial on different pieces. And then we, just very similar to the states in the picture, but we specifically put the officers split up throughout it to make the officers not better than anybody else. And then we premised it on the fact that we were going to survive if we all worked together. And that became that very simple symbol, train or die. And then when people would ask us about it, we explain it to them. Together, we're going to make this thing, and we're all going to work together. And if we don't work together, if this head flops off, then somebody's going to die. So we have to take care of each other, and we have to build that on that. And that became it. And then when we were having some struggles at the fire academy, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, we most of us we were all part-time employees, so we lost our job for the most part for a long time, and we wanted to do more things. So me and Wallace got together, and we helped some guys out with a local class, and we taught them some stuff that we thought everybody knew. And then we quickly realized that because we were career firemen and had been in the fire service for a long time, and while we don't work at the busiest stations by any means, we still had quite a bit of experience. And we knew two other guys that were fantastic instructors who had the same mindset we did, which was that we're going to teach and we're going to learn at the same time. And we got those guys together and said, "Hey, we want to do this. We want to run this thing, and we want to be able to bring the knowledge that we have to people, to anybody that will listen. And at the same time, we're going to get better while we're doing it, meaning that we're going to go places and we're going to learn what they do too, so we can get better." And that was really when the company kind of started. The Facebook group was on accident too. Again, I'm not the greatest at this. So we have buddies that run other Facebook groups, and one of them had a training class in it. And I remember seeing the training class, and then somebody asked me, "Hey, did you see this class?" And I said, "Yeah, let me find it." And I couldn't find it on the internet. So I said, "Man, I'm tired of this. We're just going to do our own little group, and we're going to share training classes in it." And we started doing that with 4 guys. Now, 3 years later, there's almost 30,000 people in it. And we also found that in a lot of things on the internet, if you take a video and you post it, you're going to get smoked. There is somebody somewhere that says you didn't wear your gloves right, or you didn't do this right. And we learned there wasn't really a safe place to do that. And I hate to use the word safe place, but there wasn't a friendly place to do that. And we decided that was going to be a thing for it too. So there's a big disclaimer on that group that says, hey, look, if somebody posts a video and you don't like it, then don't say anything. And if you think you can do better, post your video. And you'll never see one of me because I screw up all kinds of stuff. And then we have a standard in that. And sadly, we've had to kick some people off the island. We have a couple people that didn't understand that. And they're going to be, I don't want to see a video of a 20-year-old kid who has 6 months in a fire service and he's practicing masking up and he's asking for help and somebody belittle him for that. Or somebody give him crap because he's standing in front of a yellow fire truck versus a red one. They should all be red. But he's standing in something in front of different. Don't give him hell for that. Let the kid's trying to learn, let him learn. And that became a thing. And then we started the page because we noticed too that when we would have conversations with firemen, that there would be guys that had struggles and they thought they were on the island and thought that their fire department was the worst in the world. And hey, man, again, it's not that bad. All of us have our own problems, and all of us, sometimes we oversleep. Sometimes we don't do good on a call, and that's okay. And there's things to do that. And then we started to write some stuff that we thought would help some people. And funny enough, 3 years later, the thing that still got shared the most was the thing that said, "Don't be an asshole," which was funny because you would think that was a simple thing, but that little thing caught on. And then you spoke of the bugles or speaking trumpets on the shirt. I remember telling people, "Hey, man, these aren't real gold. Calm down, okay? It's going to be fine." And knowing that everybody needs to have a little bit of humility and laugh a little bit more, it made a big deal. And that became it now. And it's funny because we didn't mean to do any of that. And all of us are very big on not really publicizing who we are, because in the end, we don't believe that who we are should make that big of a deal. If we're sending a good message and we're not talking about things that we don't know about, you're never going to see us teach a basement class. We don't have those in Texas. We're from Texas. We're not going to go outside of our scope. Then it shouldn't matter. And we're never going to. There's been plenty of times when people have brought things to us and we said, "Hey, we're not the best at that. We know people who are." And we've referred them to friends and guys we met down the road. And at the same time, when we started this tiny little company, we had taught with a bunch of people who had their own things. And we went to all of them. And I remember sitting down one day and making 20 phone calls. And then I had to go drive to a couple places. And I asked those people in person on the phone, "We want to start a company. We want to do this. This is somewhat in your realm. And we don't want to mess with that. And we don't want to go somewhere and somebody assume that we're teaching the same, or that we're as good as you are." And we were able to get yeses, and that was okay. And please go do it from those 20 people. And that motivated us to do it. And that was part of the thing too. There's 1.1 million firemen. We can't teach them all. And if you don't teach it, someone worse than you probably will. And a lot of people, as you reference, they get the word instructor on their shirt and suddenly they are God's gift to things. And hey, man, you don't know what you're talking about, and calm down with it. And we stayed inside our realm. And it's been us for the whole time. We love going places. We love doing stuff. We're also family people with wives and kids. There's 4 main guys that do it. And we enjoy it a lot. And we have learned a lot too with it. We've also, we're not business people either. So we don't use it to make money, to do things. We sell some stuff which is comical too. We wanted to get a T-shirt made for us to wear when we taught, and we asked people. I said, "Who does anybody make T-shirts?" And the response we got was, "I'll take 2." No. I don't want to sell them. I need to make for myself. And next thing you know, we started selling a couple of T-shirts, and then our very first hat was given to us. A very good guy named Eddie Steele of a Fools Group in North Texas mailed me a hat that had Trainer Die logo on it, and it's a GSD 987 on the back, my number, and that was a heartfelt thing to me. And then of course I wore the hat, and people wanted to buy a hat. So the goofy stickers or whatnot we do that allows us to then go to classes and not charge very much at all, because we've made some money in selling a hat to put diesel in our truck so that we can survive, and then we can take these things that we know, show up in the middle of nowhere at a volunteer department, and be able to go, hey guys, we're gonna teach you. We didn't charge much because we were able to see this stuff, and we're gonna teach to what you have, not your level of your abilities, but literally what you have. So all of us work at career fire departments. I can't show up in the middle of West Texas and a fire department that has 7 members and 3 show up and then tell them about how you're going to pull a box. They're not going to do that. It's not going to work out. And then we've translated these things across the other companies we've worked at too, because most of us have other side jobs as well. And it's worked out really, really well. And it's still amazing to us when people ask us to do podcasts or whatnot, because we're just firemen. We're just regular firemen who like to have fun and like to hang out with other firemen and like to learn stuff. So we love it when we go somewhere and we go to teach something and they have us questions, and then we get to be better at teaching it. And then we get to ask them questions like, what is that? What is that thing over there? And they say it's the coolest thing. I got to see a vacuum tanker in Pennsylvania, and I'd never seen one. And I felt like a 8-year-old kid again. Like, what is this? How does that work? You know, and that was cool. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's, I guess, how the snake came along. And God bless Ray McCormick. Ray McCormick saw the snake on my shirt on my back somewhere, and he said in his New York accent, he said, "Train or die." It's very aggressive. And I said, "Yes, but we're not those people. That's just what we use, and it works." So
yeah, working. What's in the future for Devin Craig and Train or Die? Where are you going to be this year?
So far, we're going to lift in Louisiana. We had planned on, we had put in for that, and we got it. I just got back from Kentucky teaching my other little class. I teach a class called Lazy to Leader, and what that is about is how to get those people engaged and how to be a better company officer, and not, while leading from the front, you can't chase the animals, you have to feed them. So how to get those guys engaged with it. So I just got back from doing that. I'm doing that at Lyft in Louisiana again. And then we're teaching a hands-on class the next day. We like to do truck work. I don't like my feet getting wet, and I'm bad at math, so we stay away from hose. So we're doing a little truck class. I don't understand. That thing's heavy. I don't get it, but whatever. And we're teaching that the next day. And then we maybe have a few other things. I went 9 to 5, and I know that's the crazy thing in the fire service. That's the big blasphemy to go 9 to 5. I hate to tell you, it's better. I've really enjoyed it because I have a 7 and 8-year-old, and I get to eat dinner with my kids and hang out with my kids, and I'm off on the weekend. So we're getting asked to do some other stuff. We'll probably be at the For Them conference in November, and we may do some other stuff here and there. But at the same time, we're enjoying life too. So Wallace is the same way. The other guy that owns it with me, he just taught a class in Oklahoma. We were separate, teaching things, which was pretty cool. And he has younger kids too. So we're doing some stuff together, but at the same time, we're also making sure that this good hobby that we have, and this thing that's done a lot for us, also doesn't take away from our families too. So I've been to 15 states in roughly 3 years. And taught a lot, and been gone about 45 to 50 days every year doing outside training, either taking a class or teaching it. So that's put a strain on, and while it's enjoyable, I don't want to miss this time with my kids. So Canada's slowing down, but you'll still see us posting stuff too when we can.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, how can people get a hold of you? How do they get a hold of Devin Craig to have a conversation with him? Invite him out to teach a class.
First off, if it's snow on the ground, you gotta do something. Yeah, that was enough for me for the year probably. We're going somewhere to see snow with my kids in a couple of weeks, and I'm definitely bundling up. I have more my Texas boots on with slick soles, and learned that lesson. But you can reach me on Facebook at Devin Craig is on there, DEVIN CRAIG, and then Trainer Die TX .com is us. All of our bios on there. If you were to look at our bios, it gives you a good idea about us. We make fun of ourselves because we enjoy being firemen. So you can reach me on there. There's a little part that you can ask us some questions. If you get in the trainer die discussion and you say something in there, we'll definitely try to help you out as much as we can. I've had the same phone number for since phones only made phone calls. Get that from me. I'll definitely talk to you there. And then our email addresses are on there and whatnot. As you can see with this conversation, we're still firemen, like to talk about fire. So if you get me on the phone or get me in person, you're going to spend some time. We're going to talk about some fun stuff. But that's the easy way to get a hold of us. Facebook's probably the best way, and then the website. So
excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate you spending a little time with me this evening. I know we've got a little time delay here, or time difference here between Indiana and Texas, but I'm happy we were able to connect and certainly learn from you. And as I said early on in the podcast, you're one of the most high speed, positive guys I've had the opportunity to talk to or be around. So appreciate you being here for the podcast. And as we wrap up, just again to remind everybody, thanks for tuning in to Hooks and Hoses. Get signed up for FDIC if you haven't already. It's going to sell out. I can almost guarantee it. I'm Eric Dreiman, and we'll see you on the next episode coming up in March. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.
Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology. Only from TenCate Protective Fabrics.